Well, it's been a while since our last catfishing episode, and I know there's a lot of you out there who really enjoy bank fishing for catfish just as much as I do, so we're going to give it another try today. In our first episode, we focused on points that jut out into lakes. That's one of my favorite spots to fish, especially if there's been a headwind or a flanking headwind blowing into that point. Sometimes very productive for catfish in lakes. The next episode, we just fished an old mud flat. Many of our lakes here in Oklahoma have, especially on the upper end of the lakes, mud flats with basically no topography, no structure to speak of, no variation in depth, all the things you normally look for in a good catfishing spot. But those mud flats get really productive, especially in the springtime, particularly when the shad start spawning and you can really fill up a stringer sometimes. But we're going to switch gears today a little bit and employ one of my favorite tactics for bank fishing for catfish, and that's fishing in running water after a flooding rain, which is what we've had here in the Texoma region. We've had an exceptionally dry spring. Today's the last day of April, but a couple of days ago we finally got that big rain, over 4 inches in most of the basin of Texoma. And as you can see behind me here, the water's running. There's many creeks that run into Texoma. This is one in particular that's just starting to widen out into the lake, which is a place I really like to target when it's running. Still a lot of foam and debris coming down. There's a lot of rough fish in here, carp, buffalo, gar, drum. Hopefully we can wade through them and catch a couple of catfish, because catfish love to nose up into fresh, muddy water. Now that's probably an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. When the flooding water comes down these creeks, it brings all types of nutrients and bait, all types of dead material washing down, and they basically go on a feeding frenzy. And hopefully we'll have some up in here looking to eat today. Now what I'm going to use today, and these are basically 6-foot Walmart specials. And I have old Ambassador 5000s on each of them. I bought them used off of eBay. And anyone in the know on catfishing reels knows that an old Ambassador 5000, especially the old Swedish models, are fantastic. Maybe one of the best, if not the best, overall catfishing reel. If you take even decent care of them, they can last you years and perhaps even decades. I've got them spooled up with Berkley Trilene big game 30-pound test line, so we can hold anything if we happen to get a hold of a big one today. And basically my setup is real simple, same as always. I got a 4-ounce bank sinker on the bottom. Up above that, about 1.5 feet, I'll tie a leader into my line, probably 10 inches, and then have a Eagle Claw wide bend laser sharp number 4 hook on that. I also always bring my favorite rod with me. It'll hopefully see some action at some point today. It's just a real limber, medium action, again, Walmart 6-foot rod that I've got an old Shimano Calcutta with 20-pound Berkley big game line on, because, you know, I get a fish on that and it kind of harkens back to the cane pole days with all of the flexibility. So I always enjoy catching fish on that as well. Bait for today. Now, in running water, almost any bait will work, because they're out here looking for anything they can get a hold of to eat. Worms, crawdads, cut perch, chicken liver, shad, you name it. But my go-to bait is always fresh shad. And I was fortunate enough to catch some big gizzard shads a few days ago in my cast net. Now I'll mention something about shad too. The little shad don't last very long, a day or two, and they start getting soft and they won't stay on your hook very well. But I want you to know those big gizzard shad, if you'll take care of them, keep them relatively dry and packed in ice, they're good to go for a week and even more. In fact, these shad I have today, I've got cut up into chunks, but they're 5 days old, so we'll see how they work out. I also have some earthworms. Of course, that's a fantastic bait in running water. The earthworms I have, I actually grow myself. I had an old boy that was throwing away a chest-type freezer. It was inoperable, and so he gave it to me for free. I bought a 50-pound bag of what's called spangled peat moss from Walmart. I saturated that peat moss, set it in the bottom of that chest freezer, probably about 1 foot deep. Put my earthworms in there. They're called Georgia Browns. They're not as long as a night crawler, but they're real fishy worms. They'll definitely catch catfish if there's any around. And I feed them about once a week with chicken crumbles. It's basically chicken feed. You can get a 50-pound bag at a feed store for $7, $8. And if you think about it, you can hardly buy 2 containers of night crawlers at the bait shop for that much money. So it's pretty economical. And I keep that chest freezer on the north side of my shop building so it doesn't get that direct hot sunlight during the summer. And they'll keep all year round and they'll reproduce in there. So you'll always have bait available when it's time to go fishing. And lastly, I've got some grub worms. Just white grubs, beetle grubs. I don't use them very often because I don't find them, quite frankly, very often. But funny story, a couple of days ago, we was having one of those big deluges of rain, and I looked outside. I have a dog, it's a shepherd mix named Shep. Real original, I know, but he was a rescue dog. And I saw him eating stuff off of the ground, running here and there. I didn't have any idea what he was doing, so I went out there to take a look, and those grub worms were coming up out of that wet ground to get out of the water. And he was picking them off one by one and swallowing them down, kind of like a great blue heron swallowing a perch or something. I didn't know dogs would eat grub worms, but this one will. Maybe he's watched too many episodes of Naked and Afraid, I'm not sure. But I was able to get ahead of him and get me about a dozen, so we'll put grub worm on one of these poles and see if it'll produce. Grub worm was always one of my dad's favorite fishing baits. And my dad and I, this time of year in April, would always take a week. I would take off work. We would fish all week, every day, bank fishing for catfish. We did that for decades. And he passed away last day of November in 2020, died of COVID-19, actually. And so I'm gonna dedicate this day to him because I know he would love to be here today. Now, he lived a long life. He was just 2 weeks shy of 95 years old. Healthy the whole time, World War II, Battle of the Bulge vet, so he had a full life and he's gone on to his reward, so that's a good thing. But we'll dedicate this day to him. But enough talking, we're gonna get these baited out and tossed in and see if we can get a rod to bend. We'll put a piece of cut shad on this first one here. And I've cut these shad up. They come off of a big shad. I just fillet them off of the shad and then cut them into, probably 2-inch strips that are probably a 1/2 inch wide. Now the thing to remember is you want to have plenty of your hook exposed after you put this chunk of shad on there. So just come down probably 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch below the top of the cut bait, bring it through, make sure any scales that were on the barb or the tip of the hook are removed, so you have that sharp hook and your barb available. And that's the good thing about these wide bend hooks. You have plenty of hook remaining because that's a big bait and you don't want to get the bait over the point of your hook or you'll lose the hook set every time. Put that one right out by that floating debris out there. That's always a little bit of structure. Even in running water, I like to target it. We're gonna put a grub worm on this hook. It's one of those big white grubs I was talking to you about earlier. Now, one thing I will do with these, they've got a natural bend in them, and if you bring the hook through that natural bend, sometimes that worm will be in the way of your point. So what I'll do is come behind the head there, the opposite direction of the bend, cast that out and see if something's interested in a grub today. Put some earthworms on this one. These are those little Georgia brown worms that I was telling you about earlier. They're not big, but they're active. And I don't think there's any proper way to hook worms on. I have a way I do it. I like to leave as much of the worm wiggling off of the hook as possible. So I'll basically grab I'll come down from one end of the worm, just a few millimeters, bring the point of the hook through, maybe 1/4 inch, bring it back out, fold the worm over, do that again, and then come back out of the worm before I reach his other tip. So you have all of those worm tips floundering around out in the water. I think that's a good thing. I like a full hook of worms as long as I've got plenty of the end of the hook exposed, the tip of the hook. That'll do it. Put another piece of shad on my fourth pole here, and we'll stop with 4. And we should be in business. Just a waiting game now. That's on those earthworm. First fish of the day. She's coming to her milk. Nice one. That's what it's all about. Fish on the little pole. That one hit a piece of that shad. We got here another blue cat. Now that's the kind of action we like to see right there. He's talking to us. He's loquacious. As Carl from Sling Blade might say, I like the way you talk. Anyway, this is a blue cat. Of course, they're generally lighter in color than a channel cat, but the best way to identify them, because sometimes in certain water turbidities they look kind of similar, especially a bull-headed channel cat can resemble a blue cat out of clearer water. And the way I remember it is, on the anal fin here, a blue cat is blunt, straight across, B and B. A channel cat is curved, C and C. That's how I always remember them. But yeah, that's a pretty Lake Texoma blue cat right there. Really good eating size. I figure that fish will weigh 4 pounds maybe. But I've got some digital scales, just got them this year. I've been using D-Lyres most of my life. I had a pair of digital scales that weren't too accurate before the new pair I bought, but I'd like to try them out. Now those D-Lyres, that's what catfishermen have been using for decades, I guess, but I'm not sure how accurate they actually were. In fact, I sometimes call them wee-lyres. That one's gonna weigh about 7.5 pounds. He's fat, meaty, makes some fine fillets. I believe that's one. Well, right on time. There's a little channel cat. We can take a look at it and the difference between it and a blue cat. Oh, he's talkative too. Now, these channel cat are usually golden colored, of course, and a lot of times we'll have some spots or speckles on them. But again, that anal fin down at the bottom, you'll see that it's got a curve to it. Unlike a blue cat, that'll be blunt, straight across. So channel curve, blue cat blunt. And normally you can tell just at a glance by their color and so forth, but occasionally they look fairly similar, and that's the best way to scientifically tell the difference. But we'll let him grow a little bit. I'd set that hook back real hard. There you go, get it. In that hard jaw head. I'm gonna get out of the way. I may get one in the eye. Bring him on in here. You almost there. Yes. Blue cat. I just asked you if you'd ever caught a blue cat. Now you have. Nice one too. They love that running water, don't they? Man, this is what it's all about, isn't it? Pretty old day. Fish are biting. Plenty of bait. Yeah, drop him off in there. That'll get his mind right. I enjoy all types of fishing, I really do. Anything that's biting, I like to be there attempting to catch it, but there is something special about catfishing to me. You know, when you can set your poles out on a beautiful day like today, sit back and relax and, you know, watch you getting a bite right now and let the fish come to you. I like that more passive type of fishing. To me, it's more relaxing, and I think that's why I give it the edge over other types of fishing from the bank. Helen. Yeah. Tell you what, I take those all day long, twice on Sunday. Really nice eating size channel cat. Doesn't have to be worms. I think I'm gonna string him up. I don't know what the bite force is on these channel cat, but it's up there. Well, we've already got enough for supper. It's just bonus from here on out. They say a butterfly will only land on someone who's one with nature, Reed. He was just running sideways instead of away from me. Yeah. I believe I'll string that one. He's good eating size fish. Well, our cameraman today is the fabled Darren Hill, and he brought along his son Reed, 14 years old, Boy Scout, and he's getting his, not his first taste of catfishing, but probably catching, I know he caught his first blue cat. Bring him on in, I'll land him for you. That's a nice fish. Look at that. How about that? What do you think about that? Now be careful, don't let him pin you. If he starts flopping, just drop him. Just weigh that one up. I think that fish might weigh, 8 to 10 pounds maybe. Good one. Oh, he's white, isn't he? Come out of that muddy, turbid water. Those blue cat really are light colored out of that muddy water.
We'll try to call them Mississippi whites, right?
Some people do call them Mississippi whites. I'm not gonna get in that debate. If you wanna call them that, that works for me. Boy, he was really cranking that rod down, wasn't he? You know a kid's getting excited when he beats you. When a kid beats me to the punch on a bent over rod, he's got a future in catfishing, I guarantee you that. We'll put him on the digital and see how far off I was on my guesstimation. Congratulations, Reed. You've landed a 10.5 pound blue cat. Now he's easier to hold, isn't he? That boy looks strong enough he could hold up a 20 with one hand. Looks like another one for the frying pan right there. Yeah, that's a nice channel cat. Oh, a drum. Yep, the old freshwater drum. They love cut shad and crawdads and worms. You'll catch them occasionally. Now they can be eaten. They're considered a rough fish, obviously, and I have filleted them and eaten them before. They're not bad. They're not bad. Not as good as a catfish in my opinion, but they'll eat. Kind of bony. And they also have a bad habit of swallowing the hook. I'm gonna have to get a pair of pliers to get that out. So we'll just set this down here. And
Reed, you want to hold that guy up?
Yep.
Dip him like that.
if you put your right hand under him here, under the belly, and then your right thumb in his mouth, there you go. Ooh, got it. Nice work. Now, you know, one thing about drums, they do make decent cut bait if you don't have any shad available, but we've got plenty of shad today, so we'll probably chunk him back in, let some other lucky fishermen catch him one of these days. And there he goes.
This is more of an oxbow than forever, isn't it?
It is. The lake has been cut off. It's kind of silted in toward that island. Now that actually is an island, so there's water all the way around it. But this upper end of the lake, the Red River has actually cut it off pretty significantly. And this actually was dry just a week ago. So this is all fresh water in here. I guess Corps of Engineers.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's called Graveyard Bluff. There used to be several old, like 19th century gravestones on there. Somebody stole their rascals. You believe that? There we go. Yeah, we'll weigh that one up. That's just a fantastic blue cat. Love fishing this running water. Put him on a digital. That may not be as big as that one Reed reeled in a while ago, but he is a jewel of a blue cat for shallow water fishing. Yeah, he's going to clear 12. Just somewhere between 12, 12 and a half. I'm going to measure him too, because he may cross the 30-inch threshold as well. Get my tape measure. It's from the tip of the snout to the end of one of the forks in the tail. 30 1/4. So we've got our 30-inch fish for the day. 12 and a half pounds. That's what it's all about. We'll dedicate that one to my dad, Marvin Banner, right there. He'd have a smile a mile long, catch fish like that. Hey Reed, if you'll bring me that bucket over here, we'll put your fish on here. Get one shot of them all. Nice work, nice work. I think he's getting to be a pro. Those are good blisters to have. If you got blisters after a day of catfishing, it's been a phenomenal day. That's your fish. Fat, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Seems like these fish kind of come in waves sometimes, doesn't it? Crazy. Well, Reed, I bet you're glad you ended up coming today, huh?
Oh yeah.
sometimes things work out that way. You probably hadn't planned on being on Texoma catfishing today, had you?
Oh, no.
Like I said, Reed's dad, Darren Hill's our fabled cameraman today, and he didn't get in on much action running the camera, and Reed probably hadn't planned on it, but he got in the mood pretty quick and the pole started bending over. In fact, he beat me to the punch on a couple of bites, which you don't see very often, so credit there. But no, always good to get a kid involved, and you know, Reed's what, 14 years old? Right between that kid and man stage, but anytime you have any relative, a friend that has kids, get them out catfishing. It's easy. You can fish from the bank, gather up some worms or little chicken liver, and go out and have some great memories. We've made some today, made a new friend in Reed, and we've had a fantastic day of catfishing. In fact, it's about time to wrap things up. We've got more than we can eat already, so we'll call that good. And let's go drag these fish in. We got a lot of filleting to do. And it ain't just loose talk either. I'd be amiss if I didn't thank the Lord first and foremost for a beautiful day and opportunity, freedom we have to fish out here, and for this fine string of fish. That's what it's all about. And there's the safe. Got to be quick on the draw, catfish. And there's another fish on there, Darren, beside you. Pole's bending, string of fish. I guess one more won't hurt. That's why you want to make sure you got good, strong line, because you'll get into this in flood situations, a lot of debris. But, and there he is. .32. He'll go back in the water. Well, you know, sometimes a measurement will fool you. That 30.5 was a little over 12 pounds. We'll see what this one weighs at 32 inches before we let it. Well, we got interrupted a while ago by a bite, and can't complain about that, but that fish went back in the water, and here's what we strung up for the day. That's going to be plenty of meat for all of us. Enjoy a few meals with our family. And now the work begins. We'll try to get them filleted up. Reed, need to feel that stringer. They're all there. There's a strong young man. Nice.